This is Jeffrey Crevero, and I'm conducting an oral history with Richard Billette and Roger Billette. The interview is being conducted at the Zellwood Community Center in Zellwood, Florida, on Saturday, March 25th, 2023. Gentlemen, thank you for speaking with us today. Could you please begin by stating your names and telling us a little bit about where you're from and what life was like for you growing up?
Well, I'm from right here at Tangerine, they said, where I was born there in 1932, in May 9th. And I've seen a lot of changes around since then. Back then, we had, all we knew was citrus and orange groves. Back in that time, that's when they could grow beautiful orange trees with nice big oranges. That's before all this disease and stuff and cold weather. Well, we had cold before some of that, but that's how I remember us growing up through in the citrus around here mostly.
Yes.
And then Zellwood Farms here, or in the teenage years, all the vegetables and stuff they grew out here on the muck since they closed all that down. So we've been through the history of all that. I don't know what all Roger can remember that he used to say, but
So Richard's 91, I'm 78. I was born in 1944, and I was born on Wilkins Road, right across from the North Orlando Airport now. It was an airport then for one airplane, Mayor McDonald, and he was a crop duster. And my sister also was born in the house, which since has burned down. But we're first cousins. Our dads are brothers, and I guess really the way they got to Florida was they were farming in South Georgia, and that's my dad said he got tired of having no money in his pocket, so he wanted to come down where he could make something weekly. But actually my Uncle Theodore came first, and then R.K. Richard Kelso, his dad. And my dad was several years later because he was the baby of the family, so he stayed home and helped his dad farm. And after they all came down, one of the hubs and the center points of our lives has been the Zellwood Church of God, which, by the way, next year celebrates its 100th year anniversary.
yeah.
And it's been the hub that we have centered around in our lives. And a lot of us met our wives. I met my wife there at church. My dad met my mother there at church, and we're married there. I married my wife in 1964 there. Her name was Jane, maiden name Turner. And it's odd, no bigger than Zellwood is. I lived on the north side, and I went to Mount Dora to school. And my wife lived on the south side of Zellwood here, and she went to Apopka to school, so I never met her until after I'd graduated, living in this large metropolis. But that's basically how we got here. My Uncle Theodore never had any children, but Richard has three other, two sisters and one more brother, and I have one sister, and we've all stayed real close.
Yeah.
And
We speak of Uncle Theodore,
yeah.
my dad's brother, older brother. I remember when I was just a little child. I remember when he had the gas station, wasn't a little gas station with one gas pump. Had to pump it, with gas at the top. If you wanted a gallon of gas, you'd pump it.
Like
And
the old
drain
Walton gas pump.
Yeah. Then
Pumped it
drain
into a
out.
glass.
So my mother's sister, Rosella, was married to Theodore. They had that station. And that was in Tangerine there, Tangerine Hill. And that's been a long time ago.
Then your dad had a store.
Well, that was later. Yeah,
Yes.
that was later.
At the location now, it's a marked down lumber
Yeah.
place.
He
Chuck's
sold-
Welding was
he
there
sold
for a lot of
it.
years. and May Borders Department Store.
Yeah.
And his dad actually started it.
No, he bought it from, I can't remember the people's name he bought that from, the elderly couple.
Yeah,
And then he sold it to the Borders when they came down. I
right.
think it was Ohio.
You remember what year that was?
You what?
Wait, you remember what year that was?
It was in the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember exactly just what day. It must have been, I remember they had the rationing going on at the time, World War II. And it was, I'd say, the middle of the 40s there. And I remember everything was rationed at that time. You could only get so much sugar and tobacco products and stuff like that. And he didn't keep it too long, maybe a year or so before he sold it. And,
Then had a fruit stand within a couple of 100 yards of there.
well, yeah. Well, then
Later
that was,
on.
That was later too, and much later. That was up in the 80s. Yeah,
Right.
with a fruit stand. But it's just we've slowly progressed with Zellwood over the years. Like I was telling before, I remember when you could get on Highway 441, single road, wasn't
Single
double.
lane.
And Lenny Stewart had his drugstore and the old post office there. And you could drive off of 441 and park straight up on it until they put the other lane in, and then that took the parking place. But at that time, I was going to vocational school in Orlando, and you could get on 441, and I think, the best I remember, the only traffic light I would have is in Apopka. And then you go, when you got out of Apopka, you could go from there to Highway 50 before you hit another one. And so it didn't take too long, really. Well, I was going to Apopka High School at the time, 51. And it didn't take long to go from Apopka to the vocational school in Orlando at that time. Now, it's stop and go all the way with traffic. So that kind of goes way back in the early 50s. But there've been a lot of things happened between that and all the growing up around Zellwood, between all the farming they had, and my dad had few old dump trucks, and they would have the celery operation out of, I think it comes from Oviedo. The celery would come from Oviedo. They would process it at Zellwood here, and all the old scrap, you know, they would grate it, and all the old stuff would go up the route, and he had the old dump trucks that would catch the scrap, and they'd haul it out there on the muck and dump it and recycle it. So he's just a lot of things like that growing up around Zellwood.
I can remember when, instead of taking it out on the muck and dumping it, a lot of times, the little community that he started, and that'll be a story in just a second, he would bring extra celery or a load of corn or a load of carrots, and he'd dump it underneath an orange tree in the shade, and then all the neighbors were welcome to come and choose from it, and it's kind of like a second harvest food bank. Which back then was great, because like Richard said, a lot of things were rationed. And my dad always called me a sugar baby because I was born during the war. And they got more stamps for sugar, and of course a baby, I didn't need sugar. but his dad was quite the entrepreneur, RK, or some people called him Kid. his name's Richard Kelso,
Yeah.
but he hauled a lot of the dirt in for the roads on the muck farms when they were active.
Yeah,
And also, besides hauling the coals away, he would haul the dirt in. And he ended up buying a piece of property which now is known as Bird Drive, just north of Zellwood off 441. And he built the first house there, and I call him a developer because he sold off little plots of land, and the neighborhood grew up there, which I was raised in. And Richard also, most of his growing up. And
teenage years.
became a great place to live, you know, lots of young families there, and a great history there on that street with us. But like I say, he was like a developer. He sold off the pieces of land and made a home place for many people
Yeah, be
to
an
grow
old
up.
Country boy from Georgia, he did pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He did an interesting thing. I guess I know so much about his life because Richard's mother would babysit myself and my sister a lot. And so in 1949, he bought a brand new Mercury, right?
I thought it was a 50 Mercury ball.
Might have been a 50, bought probably 49. You know how they come out a little early.
Yeah. it was-
Anyhow, he picked up a contract with U.S. Mail, and he would drive the Mercury, so I would ride with him a lot of times out to Lake Jim, and he would pick up every how many bags of mail was being mailed from Lake Jim. He'd come by the Tangerine post office and pick up mail there, and then meet them right up on the 441 on the highway, which back then was only 2 lanes. And a mail bus came rolling by. It was a wild thing to watch. It never stopped. He would throw the mail on in one door, and they would throw the mail out the other door that was to go back to Tangerine and Lake Jim, and he'd carry them back out the same day. But that bus never stopped, and there were at least 4 men standing at work tables sorting the mail as that bus rolled along. So that was around 1950. That was just an interesting thing to me.
Yeah.
He got into that type of thing, and of course, it's like the Pony Express. It didn't last forever, but it was a wild way of delivering the mail for a long time. I mean, for a season, and he was involved in that. So he was always getting into something and getting us into something. He started picking me up odd jobs, and that was before they talked about child labor law. At 12 years old, I started doing lots of jobs for money. And I got my Social Security number at 12 years old because of that. One of the men insisted I have a Social Security number. And
He was a hard worker, that's
he-
all he knew,
very hard worker,
to make your own way.
right?
He didn't have welfare and all that stuff to go to. It was, you had to make your own way.
My
So that's
dad,
the way he brought us up.
yes,
Work hard and try to live right.
yes,
Treat people right, like you want to be treated.
yes.
And thank God that hopefully we've turned out pretty good, not trying to brag or nothing, but from what I see in some of this old world, it's just, thank God, like I say, it's like we turned out, so.
Richard has a younger brother, Rod, and
Yeah.
they were in business installing fiberglass pools for several years together.
Yeah,
And
about 10 years.
about 10 years. I had a business
Yeah.
that was called Mr. B's Aluminum. I was in for almost 40 years, and I've since have retired from it, but I would actually build some pool enclosures for their pools, along with lots of other work. We've all worked for literally thousands of people, and in my work, especially Zellwood Station right here in town, and then all the surrounding area. But we've tried to contribute to the community, and we also, again, to go back to the church, we've also both been very active in it. And
That's right.
Richard in a lot of building, and myself, and I was a clerk or treasurer there for 46 years. My wife, they wanted to go computer, and I don't like computers, so my wife actually has taken over, and she's been doing it for a little over 4. So between the two of us, we've been treasurer there for 50 years. And then done a lot of building repairs, maintenance. In fact, my sister is 2 years younger than myself. She was born in 1946. Her name is Geraldine. She likes to be called Jerry. And she was only a few days old, the way I understand it. We've got a picture, and I was going to bring it today and left it at home. But it's 1946, and it's a picture of all the congregation of the church at that time. It's a story and a half high, so the steps are just full of families and precious people. Precious people that were right here in the community. The Harrises, the Martins, the Combs.
Yeah, Roger and Pastor Brockman is there now. He's a fine man. They have been remodeling all the Sunday school rooms in the church, and they tiled all the floors, put the drop ceilings in. That looking real good, Roger.
And he's helped too. Don't let him tease you.
I'm kind of the overseer there. I kind of see y'all over.
We're looking for revival time, you know, and for the church to revive again. We're very hopeful of that. Lots of trust in it. Richard's sister is a retired minister's wife, and she's a great songwriter, Irma. I think one of her first jobs is she worked here at the Zellwood Inn, didn't she? Did she work at the Zellwood Inn?
Well, I don't know. Her first job that I remember, of course I was getting older then, at First National Bank in Mount Dora when it was downtown.
Yeah. Yes.
And she worked there. And
They had a history of hiring one senior every year, the First National Mount Dora. They were one of the only banks in the whole area that during the Depression did not close down. And I remember when I was a senior, in 1962, they would take you on a tour of the bank, and they gave every senior every year a silver dollar, a real silver dollar back then, which I still have, but that was a fine institution that still is in business today. But you know, anyhow, Irma, I'm almost sure she worked there at the inn some, and Dolores was the secretary and receptionist there at Zellwood Farms for years.
oh yeah, she worked there. She retired there, Zellwood Farms. Yeah.
Yes, many years.
And it wasn't too long after that they closed down the Mucklands.
Yes.
But they had Carl's had owned a business right next to where we lived there, and he was from Michigan. And so my wife, which is her uncle that run that, they came down, her and her mother. Her father passed away, she was real young. And it was, I think, the Christmas vacation, and that's how I met her. She was from Michigan. They went back, and she came down a couple more times, and she come down one time too many because I captured her up and she didn't go back. She was a girl of my dreams, but she passed away going on, it'll be 5 years ago now in September. Boy, that's hard to believe.
Yes, it is.
But
Yes.
it's been quite a life growing up around Zellwood.
Yes.
But,
I started the school at the Zellwood Elementary, which was here at the time on King Avenue. And that building burned to the ground, and they built a new school down on the lake. But that's where I went my first 3 years of schooling, and then they actually bused us into another county to go to school. They said Apopka wasn't large enough at the time to absorb us. We were such a large metropolis again. But I have very fond memories of Zellwood Elementary, and made a lot of friends here in town, of course, at that time.
did you go to the old?
Yes,
You did?
yes.
I
And
went
so
to-
did Jane.
Well, I didn't know it was still there at that time
Yes.
because I started there and went to the 4th grade in it,
Mhm.
in the old Zellwood school. And before they built the new school down on the lake.
Mhm.
And my dad got it was during the war at that time in the 4th, so he got a job at Florida Aircraft in Orlando. At that time, he was everything going toward the war effort at that time. We moved down there, and I started the 5th grade down there, so everything just changed from there. Well, it was only about, I guess maybe somewhere around 3 years, we roundabout got back to Zellwood when he bought that store.
Yes. Yes.
Moved to Howey and all. It's just,
What are some of the biggest changes you've seen over the years in the
Oh,
community?
Oh,
you
wow.
what now?
Some of the biggest changes you've seen in the community since throughout the years.
Oh, the growth of people.
Mhm.
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
and instead of growing oranges, now we grow people, I think.
yeah,
It's amazing to me, the apartments and the houses that are going up. And if you know anything about Zellwood at all now, the new millions of square feet of warehousing that's going in. Literally millions of square feet. And I just watched a little movie thing last night, I think it was, on it, and it said that the builder says we haven't seen anything yet. So apparently we've got tremendous growth coming our way. And these
Yeah.
buildings are all around the airport that's there now.
They're huge.
And
Yeah, I remember when 441, you had to go through Mount Dora and through Tavares to get to Leesburg.
yes.
All this bypass, and when they started putting the new bypass in, that was, when was that? Maybe in the 50s, 40s, 50s, or 60s. They put the new
was in the
bypass
50s.
around Mount Dora, and all that property that you see now on 441, on the bypass around Mount Dora, all that was orange grove.
Yes.
It was,
Most of it, the Simpson family.
yeah, it was, none of that growth was there. It was all orange grove and all. It's just, that shows you the tremendous growth that has taken place even out around Lake County and all. It's just, because it's tremendous. I remember, as a kid, they had a Piggly Wiggly store right downtown Mount Dora. And
Yes.
I worked there as a grocery boy for a little while. And I remember the old trucks they used to have would have to go up the hill there at Mount Dora. If they had to stop at that traffic light, it was all they could do, if they were loaded, to get up to that hill at Mount Dora to, because they had to go right through town. That was the only way.
They were gas engines too, instead of diesel,
Yeah,
so they
yes.
had to struggle.
And I remember a lot of time, boy, they'd have that thing in granny gear, we'd call
Oh,
it low
yes.
gear. Boy, that revved up, all they could do was get up the if they had to stop. As long as they could go through, they could make it a little better. But that shows you the difference in the power of the vehicles now, and, well, now they all bypass all that anyway, so. But you have to grow up around all that to remember it, see it. And, 'cause you worked at the,
I
well,
worked
it
at
was sometime after that you,
Thriftway in Mount
yeah,
Dora, yes.
you worked at one.
Yes, and my wife is from Georgia, and she said when they would come to visit in her early years, she said she always knew when she hit the Florida state line because the highway was all cement with the joints, so it was bump, 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 bump. And I was telling one guy, I remember it being like that, and I remember when they four-laned it in, like Richard said, in the late 50s. And so one guy told me one day, he said, "So you're trying to tell me you're older than asphalt?" I said, "I guess so." I remember when it was all concrete highway, and it was a bump all the way. But we have saw some changes, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I know my dad, I heard him talk about the road that come from Sanford to Mount Dora.
Yes.
It was a one-lane brick road. And in case you happened to meet somebody, you had to get one wheel off and they had to get one wheel off to come through from Sanford over. And that shows you the difference now with the super highways they got on that and the growth.
Yes.
And, but that was kind of interesting, the old, a long brick road there, single lane. I can see a Model T Ford and that,
Yes.
going along there and that. So, but all that goes way back for history.
I told my wife there's so much road growth also in the area. You was asking the changes. I said, I think we're going to end up just living in the medians. There's so many highways being built because just like I-4, the toll lanes in the middle, I understand just this week they've announced that they're going to build another lane in there. And so the highways and the growth of homes and houses, and of course it absorbs the orange trees, which the weather seems to never let go anymore anyhow. But there's no sparing the land as we just gobble it up for growth. And I can't blame people for wanting to come to Florida because my wife laughs at me. I don't live any more than 5 miles from where I was born. And she laughs at me about it. And I said, well, hon, I thought I was born in heaven because everybody in the world wants to come here to this area. So why should I want to leave it? It's, I still like it. I still love it. I still enjoy my place. I've lived at the same home on Round Lake Road for, I think it's 57 years now, 57 years. And just love being in the community. I love the community. Met many, many fine people here. Sure have. And, hope our Billette family's been contributors to some of the goodness. Not any of the bad stuff, but the good stuff.
Yep. Well,
History's brought us a long ways.
Do you gentlemen have anything you want to expand on? Anything you want to add, or any final thoughts for us today?
I think that's it. Just hopefully we leave a legacy of a fine family. And I have 2 wonderful sons still living. Richard still has a son and a daughter still living.
I have a son and a daughter.
One of them right here in the community.
One lives in Tennessee. Built her a nice home up there.
Right.
And my son's right back. My house faces one street, his faces another, back to back. So he's got 2 children. Jerry and Rachel. And My daughter has one daughter. So, they come to visit about every Christmas,
Yeah, great people.
but I don't know. It's just, I'd like to, see the whole world a little more united. People
Yes,
get along.
yes.
There's so much conflict that it hurts you to see the
Yeah.
turmoil that goes on.
Yes, it does.
Only thing they do, if they just don't trust in the good Lord, it would make a big difference.
That's a for sure. That is a for sure.
That's a good way to end it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, gentlemen, thanks again so much for sharing your time and speaking with us today.
Amen.
Really appreciate it.
Well,
This has been Jeffrey Crivero with Richard Billette and Roger Billette on March the 25th, 2023.